Thank you for watching. Subscribe on Deceived Husbands for more stories. I had just witnessed what my wife of 25 years, Karen, did every Thursday afternoon while I was at work. This time was supposedly her workout time at the local fitness center, which she visited twice a week. What I saw resembled some low-budget reality show featuring has-been celebrities trying to recapture their glory days with new, younger partners. In short, I saw my wife having a good time with another man. Taking a step back, I'm a high school math teacher, so I have very predictable work commitments at school. Each Thursday afternoon, we have staff meetings that always go until 4:30 p.m., which means I'm usually home by 5:30. Karen was always very tired on Thursday evenings because of her gym workouts, so I usually prepared dinner while she took a shower and made the beds. Thursday was also her laundry day, so we always had fresh linen on the bed Thursday nights and a washing machine full of dirty clothes. Our school principal had a surprise visit from the district inspector, so he unexpectedly called off the staff meeting today. I went back to my classroom and finished grading papers for the day. It was still only 1:30. On a whim, I decided to go home and prepare dinner early, maybe do some tidying up before Karen returned from the gym. She had been growing more distant recently, and I thought that a candlelit dinner and a relaxed atmosphere with no urgent chores might spark some intimacy and reignite the passion between us. As a long-term type 1 diabetic, my ability to engage in traditional intimacy was a bit compromised. Over the years, as the complications of diabetes steadily worsened, I had resigned myself to this. I didn't think it was a real problem, since all of our intimate moments from early in our marriage had been at my initiation. Karen retained some deep-rooted guilt about anything physical, ingrained in her through a strict religious upbringing. Intimacy was enjoyable for her most of the time, but no matter how hard I tried, she never lost herself in the passion of it. She was never inclined to try new things. The question at the end of most of our sessions was usually, "Did you enjoy that, dear?" It was always me suggesting different ways to spice up our intimate life, only to be met with, "No, we can't do that." I was resigned to that fate in our marriage. Surely, marriage was about more than just physical connection. We seemed to get along fairly well apart from the occasional heated arguments, usually about some financial issue. Recently, though, I had noticed her becoming more and more distant from me, often belittling me for my lack of initiative in the bedroom. She increasingly wanted to control all aspects of our lives and became hard-headed and argumentative when she didn't get her way. I wrote most of it off as the usual rough and tumble of marriage relationships and tried to continue as normal, trying not to provoke unwanted arguing, hoping that it would sort itself out eventually. I was a patient man. Today, I arrived home as I usually do by parking in our driveway, which was a fair distance from the house. This driveway positioning was done so that when our children were young and in bed, no car noise would interrupt their sleep. Their sleep time was precious not only because it kept them healthy, but it also kept us sane. We had quiet time to recharge while they did. I parked and leisurely walked up to our 2-story house. Karen's car was there, but it always was on workout day, as she said that she preferred taking the subway. Then my head was already in the time to clean up space as I quietly entered the back door. I'm a bit of a handyman, so every door hinge and moving component of our house was well maintained and quiet. Nothing annoyed us more than banging doors or squeaky hinges. The first thing I noticed was that Karen's purse was still on the kitchen counter. She'd be upset, I thought. Karen was a stickler for having her purse, especially always close at hand wherever she was. This anomaly corrected my cleanup mentality, and I started to notice other things. Her gym clothes, mostly a form-fitting yoga outfit and large towel, were on the floor next to the kitchen counter. What? I thought, still not fully registering the nasty implications. Then I heard noises coming from our bedroom upstairs. I know the noises that my wife makes when she's having a good time, and part of me first thought that she was at last using the toy that I had bought for her some time ago, but that was swiftly put aside by the knowledge of who my wife was and her ingrained attitudes toward intimacy. We designed our house to have a parents' retreat upstairs with the rest of the house, including the kids' bedrooms downstairs. Maybe Karen became suddenly sick and was upstairs, I innocently thought. I carefully and quietly walked up the carpeted stairs. Again, the house was designed for minimum noise, sleeping kids, etc. I was about to call out to see if she was all right and if I could get her anything, when I almost tripped on some shoes on the steps. They were men's shoes. They weren't my shoes, nor were the long trousers, shirt, undershirt, and socks strewn up the remaining stairs interspersed with Karen's panties and bra, her sexy ones which only came out during special occasions. I am not a slow learner, just trustingly unaware that anything like this would be possible. At this point, my logical brain was at odds with the sum amount of marriage experience, with its underlying reliance on innocence, trust, and belief in the loyalty, love, and commitment of the marriage partner. I paused. My skin became sweaty, and my blood pressure dropped while my heart momentarily lost its rhythm. Was I having a low-sugar episode? I had to sit down on the stairs and regain myself, or I would have fallen down the stairs in a dead faint. No, was all I could whisper over and over. My disbelief turned to anger, an emotion I am not used to. I'm usually a quiet, calm, controlled man. Being a teacher handling 30 different students all day enhanced that in me many years ago, but now that failed me. Adrenaline kicked in and I saw red for the first time in my life. I hadn't even been in a real fight with anyone before. These feelings were completely alien to me. Still, with all of these strange feelings invading my system, a morbid sense of curiosity made me gently and quietly proceed up the stairs and into our two-way closet, one door into the bedroom and another into the upstairs bathroom. By making my way through the ensuite bathroom, I could then go into the large walk-in closet, which then connected to our bedroom. At the bedroom door of the closet, I could see clearly into the bedroom. The closet door was slightly ajar and at just the right distance that I could see the bed. I felt like I was watching a horror movie. The actions and plot were all pure California drama, but the identity of the main female lead character transformed it into a horror flick. I was on remote control. I could not look away. You know the knowledge that some graphic, gruesome scene was about to play out on the screen, but you keep watching anyway. Then I saw it. Actually, I had been hearing the sounds all along, but my mind hadn't registered the noises of pleasure coming from our bedroom. After the initial discovery, it was overloaded with pure rage and disbelief. I could see the whole scene played out before me in every graphic detail. The sights, smells, and sounds came at me in a rush. The hairy body of some stranger between Karen's legs, her eyes closed tightly and brow furrowed as if concentrating extremely hard on a problem. Did I want to fight and beat this man? Hell yeah, but unfortunately I'm not a martial artist or an ex-soldier or the alpha male that we all have been hearing about so often. And no, I don't have a friend named Ralph. Neither do I know anyone who is a hitman from Mexico. Hell, I have never been to Mexico. I knew that I would never win a fight with this huge man. I had no clue what to do. I don't know how, but my mind allowed me to detach from the scene before me just long enough for my logical brain to suggest I take out my phone and record what I was seeing. Would a sane, logical man do that? I would need this footage later to convince myself that all of this was real and that I was not in the middle of some nightmare. I would need this to confront Karen about what I was seeing. My hand shook in the action of taking out the phone. It was almost automatic. What I was experiencing was too surreal. Strangely, it was the act of recording the scene that triggered some sense of calmness in my overloaded psyche. It provided the disconnect that allowed my subconscious to cope. I had watched movies with intimate scenes before, much of it with Karen when we were younger, but less so while the kids were growing up. What if the kids found it? She would always say, and rightly so. The falseness and poor acting of most of those scenes were enough to be able to detach from any sense of reality during the flick, but it was usually titillating enough to get both me and Karen into the mood physically and psychologically for a good session of intimacy. While she would never admit it, she liked what she saw. Our love for each other provided the catalyst to change pure animal instinct into making love in its purest form. However, this was different. My hand held the phone while my eyes were glued to the moving act of betrayal playing out before me. This was not some overdone Hollywood scene. This was my wife, my lover, my life partner, the one whom I trusted beyond doubt, the mother of our grown children, the attractive 50-year-old woman who worked out, helped neighborhood charities, and said she loved me beyond all else. This was betrayal at the most primal, basic level. It wrenched the guts out of me. Literally, I had to stop recording, quickly creep downstairs, and back out to the driveway where I threw up. My body purged the contents of my stomach while my mind wished for a similar purging of the sensory torment that I had just endured. After what seemed like hours, but in reality was probably only 30 minutes, I left our yard and started walking. To where, I didn't know, but I ended up in a park several miles from our house. There, I washed my face, sat down, and watched the recording with the sound turned down so as not to frighten the children playing all around me, their mothers talking with each other on seats nearby. Thankfully, none of them saw what I was watching. The destruction of my life and all I had grown to find normal was there in digitized reality on my phone screen, the destruction of our marriage. It was then that I cried, with my stomach purged. Now it was time for my emotions to let fly and purge my psyche in a similar way. I cried until a sound interrupted me. The warning beep of impending battery failure roused me from my sobbing. The park was empty as my soul. My body felt light, almost ethereal as I floated back home. All the weight that grounded me and my life was taken from me, leaving only a walking shell. I felt like a balloon floating along with the wind, held only by a string to stop from disappearing into the sky. It was about 5:30 p.m., my usual staff meeting day return time. I was again at home at my back door. When Karen saw me, she immediately realized there was something wrong with me. The disheveled shirt, red eyes, and pale skin were dead giveaways. "Honey, what's wrong? You look really pale. Is everything all right?" she asked, touching my shoulder in a compassionate, motherly gesture, leading me to the nearby kitchen chairs. "I'll get you a drink. You smell like you just puked. Are you okay?" Her eyes told me that she was genuinely concerned. I couldn't tell her what really set me off, not yet. I just answered in a shaky voice. "Not really. Something upset my stomach, maybe lunch. Sorry, but I puked near the driveway. I'll clean it up later. Hopefully it isn't contagious. Lots of kids at school are away at the moment with a similar problem." I mumbled something else, which I can't recall, but the gist of it was that I was taking a shower and going to bed. Karen replied, "Okay, hun, but take a container with you to bed if you puke again. It might be on the nice, clean sheets." Those damn sheets. They were clean, but now had been soiled by far worse than last night's dinner. They were soiled by the stains of pure betrayal. I replied a little more forcefully, "It's okay, I'll sleep in the spare room until I feel better," and wandered to the spare downstairs bedroom. And that was it for the next few days. Karen was her normal self. I was on autopilot with work and slept in the spare room in case I puked again. I knew I couldn't keep up that excuse for long, though. I eventually moved back into our bedroom, but had a huge problem sleeping in this cheater's nest. Karen seemed oblivious to my unease and continued in her usual manner. Monday came, and I had made up my mind about what to do. I needed to know if this was an ongoing thing, or was it a one-time event. I informed my principal that I would be having an unexpected medical procedure the next day, and he organized a temp teacher to take my class. Tuesday morning, I left as usual, but parked a few streets down the neighborhood and walked back to our street. I knew the back entrances to the yards near our house, and carefully, so I wouldn't be observed by any neighbors, made my way to our garage at the back of the house. There I changed into casual clothes and soft socks for walking quietly. It was then a waiting game. I remember that there was no extra car at home when I arrived unexpectedly last Tuesday, so I would not be able to rely on the sound of a car arrival to inform me of any visitors. The guy must walk here. I crept carefully around our gardens until I was in a spot that allowed me to see our front door, while being screened by the hedges and bushes we had planted for privacy from the road. I waited. Karen could be heard going about her chores, totally oblivious to my presence. Her confidence that the normal routine was occurring was obvious: kitchen, washing up, dishwasher, lounge, vacuuming, and dusting. This went on until about 10:30. Karen then went upstairs. I could just hear the shower, followed by a period of silence, followed by the flushing of the toilet. She came back down about 30 minutes later, dirty sheets in hand. She deposited them into the washing machine. She was wearing her gym clothes and looked freshly showered and shaved. Even now, I could only stare at her slim, petite figure. I loved it when she wore her gym outfits. The regular sessions really kept her looking her best, and she looked great, I have to admit, too. She then opened the front door and left it open so that if someone came, they would not have to hesitate but come straight in, I supposed. This didn't look good. My hope that what I saw was a momentary lapse into madness by Karen seemed as if it was a forlorn hope. I didn't have long to wait. About 11:30 he came. I did not know who he was, but he had walked in from the left side of our front gate. My phone took about 10 seconds of video that recorded side profiles and even an almost straightened view of his face. He didn't hesitate. He was straight in and through the door. The next words I heard made my blood curdle. "Hey, lover, I hope you're dressed for a big workout again." "Of course," came the reply from Karen in my leotards as usual. "You always love it when I wear these." "I sometimes wonder if it was these that attracted you to me in the first place," she said playfully. "Baby, you never cease to make me hot for you," he replied. Then they went at it, all there in real-life color in front of my eyes. If it was not bad enough, I even heard a documentary narrator's voice in my head as I saw it. This was beginning to feel like déjà vu. Now I knew why I saw what I saw last week. I definitely did not need to see any more to confirm my suspicion that this was indeed an ongoing affair, not just a one-off event. It seemed that they almost had a well-practiced routine to their sessions. I had seen enough. I could not see any more from my vantage point anyway without risking entry into the house. They had only just moved into the bedroom, our bedroom, and would still not be as focused on their encounter as last Tuesday. They would most probably hear me this time if I attempted to venture into the house. I retraced my steps to the garage and took stock. My heart was still going nuts. I needed to calm down, but I also needed to find out more who, where, why. The why I already knew. How was I going to tell Karen that I knew of her affair? That telling would probably be more painful for me than for her. She had already had heaps of time to rationalize and compartmentalize what she was doing. It had all just been thrown into my world in a blur. I came to the realization that I would never love my wife Karen again. The betrayal went too deep. I know that some people say that these things can be overcome with correct counseling and a degree of commitment from both parties. But hey, Karen's level of commitment was fairly obviously low. I would never again enjoy intimacy with her. I had not seen any forms of protection anywhere, not that it was an often experienced event lately anyway. If she was happily engaging with others behind my back, then there was no telling what she could pick up. The why bothered me the most. Why was she doing it? I knew we didn't have a very active, intimate life, but her whole life with me had been one governed by guilt about such pleasures. Intimacy was for creating kids, not enjoying and gaining pleasure from. Lust was one of the 7 deadly sins, and to feel overly turned on or passionate while engaging in such acts was almost banned from all good people like her. I was the one who always tried to add some spice and adventure into our intimate life while I was physically able. I always knew that one day my diabetes would have a degenerative effect on me, among other body parts, and so I would try everything to add new things to our intimate life. Every single innovation, toy, or suggestion that I tried to introduce was met with negative feelings and even some strange glances which suggested that in some way I was weird for even thinking of those things. It took 10 years of marriage for her to even try certain acts. Call me weak, but I'm not a pervert. I will not insist that a woman with Emily, my wife, the only woman I had ever been with, perform an act which she finds abhorrent or causes her discomfort. I will acquiesce with anything she finds comfortable at the time, even if I wish that more adventure or creativity could occur. I am just like that. Whether that is seen as unmanly or whatever, I could not bring myself to do that. Besides, it certainly doesn't do much to my libido to have an unwilling partner. I know some people get off on being in control, as the plethora of websites attest to, but that is their thing, not mine. So why now, all of a sudden, did Karen want to explore all of those things which she steadfastly disagreed with for so many years of our marriage? And why didn't she discuss these newfound desires with me first? I realized that the betrayal was just an outward manifestation of a deeper lack of trust and willingness to share intimacy. My marriage was absolutely, utterly destroyed. She betrayed our marriage right down to its foundations. Admittedly, I did feel blame for her actions. Maybe there was something more I could have done to enhance our intimate life initially. But maybe I should have kept pestering her about her desires, especially the intimate ones, instead of allowing the status quo to become entrenched. Maybe she felt that she couldn't discuss these with me. I needed to soul-search these questions more. Where had all of this started and when? I knew that Karen had been going to her gym workout sessions for at least 2 years. It had been a New Year's resolution that long ago, one that I supported wholeheartedly. As a diabetic, I absolutely understood the need to maintain a healthy, balanced lifestyle, which included a necessary physical workout regularly. I knew that Karen went to a fitness center 2 subway stops from our house, one that was frequented by many of the married women in our neighborhood. I thought that it was a great idea, as it helped Karen connect with other females and build a small community feel for those around us. These women became very connected with her. They even convinced her to help with the many charity drives in the neighborhood. Maybe the gym would be where I could start. As a teacher, I had access to computers, printers, etc. I printed out profile pictures from my phone footage and decided to start with finding out the who first. Maybe that would lead to where and when this craziness started. I did not have much searching to do. The next Thursday, Karen had her normal gym session, and I suggested that I come along too so that I could decide if I should also join. It was midterm, so I had the week off school. Karen was not very receptive to this, making excuses like, "It's only a bunch of married ladies there and we mostly talk all session," where the weakest of excuses sounded like, "Who's going to be home while I'm at the gym?" I persisted, though, and managed to tag along the next Thursday. At first, as I walked into the gym, it was almost like the who ordered milk in the saloon situation. All eyes were on me, and I also noted some sideways mutterings from many of the ladies. Karen dismissed this with me by saying that the ladies were not used to seeing her accompanied to her regular gym sessions. The session progressed with the usual warm-ups and stretching. This was followed by an hour and a half of exercise station switching, so that each muscle area was developed appropriately. I went along as long as I could, but had to stop and take a breather about 45 minutes in. Actually, my blood sugar started to lower, and I knew that I had to stop and eat some sweet stuff fairly quickly. I did that, and Karen understood. After taking the jelly beans and waiting in a side chair, I took more notice of Karen and saw that she was obviously very nervous. She kept glancing at the staff area, where the instructors entered the main hall from. I also began to take more notice of the gym around me. It looked much like all gyms the world over. Exercise stations positioned all over with wall mirrors at each station so that participants could self-monitor their stance and muscle definition at each point. I wandered around, then noticed a wall with staff information situated near the exit to the hall. I went there more as a distraction and as a way to fill in the time till Karen finished. I glanced at the top photo, a woman of some indeterminate age, well-shaped and definitely extremely fit, I thought, as I read her description as Rebecca Green, director and owner. This was followed by her cell phone contact number and hours of availability. Under her photo were 3 others, 2 women and 1 man. It was here that I froze. I would recognize that man anywhere, especially on a nudist beach. He was Karen's lover. This was the lowlife who was enjoying my wife, albeit with her passionate permission. Trembling, I read his description, Mr. Mark Benson, head of exercise regime planning and personal body training. I had the who as I made a mental note of his phone number. I glanced in Karen's direction and noticed that she wasn't at the last station that I just saw her at. I walked back to my side seat and slowly studied each station, looking for my wife. Eventually, I found her in a seemingly desperate conversation with a man who was partly hidden from me by some powerlifting apparatus. He looked to be at the door to the staff area and had obviously been stopped from entering by Karen. She made a definite gesture for him to go and raced back to the station where she was supposed to be. She hadn't noticed that I had noticed her absence and discussion. I was seething again. It was an emotion that I was not used to experiencing, and by the time Karen came back to where I was sitting, she again saw that I was unwell. "Are you okay? Did your sugar take a while to recover?" "Yeah, I'm okay now, though. Are you ready to go?" She was about to answer when Miss Green announced on the gym's PA that tonight's usual final session of exercises would not happen as Mr. Benson took ill all of a sudden and had to go home. This was met by a chorus of groans and sighs by most of the women there. It seems that his session was almost the highlight for most of these ladies. "This needs investigating," I pondered as I looked at Karen. She didn't make a sound as the announcement was made, but almost seemed relieved. "Let's go," she hurriedly said as she collected her towel and handbag from the seating area where everyone stored their belongings during the workout. We were just exiting when one of the ladies, whom I didn't at first recognize, came over to talk to Karen. "Such a shame that Mark couldn't finish off as usual tonight," she commented. "True," replied Karen, and made a beeline for the car in such a way that it was very clear to the lady that Karen didn't want to talk about that right then. "Okay, see you," squeaked Karen dismissively. She was in the car more quickly than I'd ever seen her do that, ever. The ride home was a quiet affair. Karen just relaxed, or seemingly so. She had her head back, eyes closed, and forcing herself to breathe slowly. I did notice these things. Maybe I could find out more from her now that she was obviously very relieved about something. "So, that was an interesting session, dear," I commented. "The station seemed to be really well set up. No wonder you are looking so trim and fit." "Thanks, honey," she replied. "You're right. They certainly have a substantial program set up there. I love going there. The ladies are nice there, too." "Shame about Mr. Benson, though," I pressed. "You mean Mark?" She replied a little too quickly. "Mark Benson. He usually finishes every session with an exercise regime that really puts everyone through their paces. You leave knowing you have really pushed your body to the limit." Yeah, it was a shame that he didn't show up tonight. Oh no, I thought. She is really into the lie, 100. I know the limits that he is pushing your body to very well, but I actually said, maybe next Thursday he will be feeling better again. I thought about the upcoming session between my wife and Mr. Benson on Thursday. It was time to get serious. At school the next week, I was on pickup duty for the non-school readers. That is, when teachers supervise an area for parents to pick up their school children by car. This is usually a hectic area where kids are frantic to go home, talk to their friends, and look for their parents at the same time. It is also a rush time for parents trying to remain patient while being in an endless car queue, which stops and starts, hoping that their child is ready when they get to the end of the queue. Imagine my surprise when, towards the end of the time, a car rolls up and the driver is the lady who tried to speak to Karen at last week's gym workout. "Hi," she said. "Sorry, but I am new to this whole pickup thing and forgot about the time entirely. Is my son Tim here?" As teachers, we get that all the time, especially when someone is new to the school. So I promised that I would go and look for him while my fellow teachers supervised the few remaining kids. I found Tim waiting near his classroom, talking with another staff member's child. "Hi, Tim," I said. "Your mom is here to pick you up. Better come down to pick up with me." He looked slightly confused by this. He was in the last year of primary school and didn't seem the type to be scatterbrained about pickups, etc. "That's strange," he quipped. "Mom is usually busy with her gym instructor on Thursday afternoons. She's often late to pick me up. At my last school, she sometimes didn't come till about 5:30. The words gym instructor immediately got my hackles up. I pressed further, trying to remain calm and just be conversational with him. Ah, good to see that Mom is looking after herself. Exercise is a very important part of a healthy lifestyle. Who is the instructor, by the way? I hoped that the answer would not be what I was expecting. Oh, his name is Benson or something like that, answered Tim. He also works at a local gym and often takes people for private lessons at their homes. That's what I would like to be when I become an adult. Mom really enjoys being with him for her exercises on Thursday nights. She is really relaxed and seems to be glowing by the time we get home. It's great. It's always takeout night because Mom rarely has time to cook a meal on Thursdays. No way, I thought. This Benson character is doing this to more people than just my wife. I escorted Tim back to his car where his mom proclaimed loudly how grateful she was for our concern. No problem, I said. Just part of the service. By the way, I haven't met you before. My name is David Lawson. All the kids call me Mr. L for short. Pleased to meet you, I shook her hand and she replied, Hi, Mrs. Oops, now Miss Taylor, Maria Taylor. I remember seeing you at the gym last Thursday. I came with my wife, Karen. Sorry, but she seemed a bit rushed when leaving. Mr. Benson's absence seems to have messed everyone up that night. At this point, her whole demeanor changed drastically. While before she was just an apologetic late parent picking her child up from school, she now instantly became pale and guarded. She was almost shaking. Yes, okay. I will see you again, Mr. Lawson. Bye, and she drove off. Wow, I thought. What gives here? Is our jerk Mark doing someone else's wife as well? I do admire the stamina of the man, but that doesn't detract from the pure, unadulterated fact that he was an absolute jerk. Now, I'm not a prude who judges everyone on the basis of their sexual behavior. Far from it. What happens between two or more consenting adults is entirely up to them. However, when one of the adults is supposedly married, there is a line that should not be crossed. If a married person feels the need to have relations with someone other than their spouse, they should be discussing either separation or open marriage with that spouse. To not do that is low, the lowest of the low. For a single person to willingly and knowingly engage with a married person, well, that is just not right in my book. Time to plan my future, something I thought I had done in consultation with my then-sweetheart, Karen. This future looked bleak. It only featured me by myself, without Karen, definitely, but maybe also without anyone. My anger allowed me to travel down a road I never thought I would explore, the path of revenge. I started to take stock of all the important little details that get hidden in the everyday life of a couple. Who pays the bills? What insurance company are we with? When do we pay our utility bills? Which account does this or that bill get paid from and when? Etc. 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 My database of all of this info started to grow. I found that we had only a small amount to pay off our mortgage and that my superannuation account had built up to a staggering $700,000. Thank God for our teachers' union, which insisted that compulsory super contributions should be part of a teacher's basic conditions of employment. I figured, after reading up on the topic as much as possible on the internet without Karen knowing, that there was no way that I could escape the fact that all of our assets had to be split evenly. Our children were no longer dependent on us. We did have quite a bit saved in a cash account ready for a planned overseas trip, about $20,000. That trip would not be happening now. I decided my first act would be to deplete that account as fast as possible before Karen got wind of the fact that I had discovered her betrayal. I surreptitiously made many of the appliances in our house suddenly not work, a disconnected wire here, etc. While she was not at home, I would always say that Mr. So-and-so came to fix the said appliance, and that he charged such and such dollars, and that he did it for cash for a little less. This cash I would secret away and then fix the appliance. Using this method, I had managed to secret away about $15,000. I had also bought tools, etc., always with cash, showed them to Karen, and then returned the tools the next day for a cash refund. Nasty and deceitful, I know, but the values of honesty and trustworthiness had already disappeared from our relationship because of Karen's actions. The whole scenario was turning me into something I never thought I could be: a liar. Karen's Thursday afternoon workouts with Benson continued. I no longer even tried to maintain an intimate relationship with Karen. We just lived together as two housemates would. My personal items slowly started to disappear into boxes in the garage. Karen never really went into the garage, so the rearrangement wasn't noticed. Her car was usually just parked in front of it. She was content to leave the garage as my turf. Once she questioned the fact that some of my personal stuff was not on the shelves anymore. I just put it off, saying that I broke it by mistake, or that I didn't really want it anymore. She seemed happy with these responses, mainly because most of my things did not really match Karen's color scheme for what she wanted the room to feel like. When most of my stuff was in that manner away, it really didn't make much difference in the house. It made me realize how much I had relented to allow Karen to dominate much of our existence. I withdrew all of the superannuation that I could and bought a small house. A very small house on the outskirts of town. It only had 2 bedrooms and a small yard, but it had a garage and was near enough to the school that I worked at. The good part was that the balance of the mortgage was such that I could easily manage the repayments, even on half of my salary. This was not a mansion. It is amazing what a bargain can be had if only we didn't all want to be in glitzy, popular suburbs. My separation was in motion. I gradually brought my personal items into the new house. Furniture was not an issue, as I could easily pick up second-hand or pre-loved items at charity shops. That was what my life felt like: pre-loved. Loved once, but now forgotten, and reliant on charity to have any value. It was time for the players to get their just rewards. I edited the footage that I had of Karen and Mark, minus the sound. What they were saying to each other was just too painful. At one point, I heard that jerk Mark refer to me as that sucker. Karen didn't disagree, but to her credit, she did flinch slightly. She knew that what she was doing was wrong, and her guilt manifested itself often in subtle ways. After each Thursday session with her lover, she tried to instigate some form of intimate liaison with me, but I just couldn't comply. My heart and libido were as cold as ice. I don't think she remembered how to start getting me in the mood anymore, so she soon gave up. Intimacy was usually at my instigation and hardly ever because of any advances from her. In her mind, it was obviously okay for her to respond to a husband, but not okay to actually admit to having such desires herself and to project this need to her husband. Okay, so maybe some of the fault was mine also. Still, I didn't go elsewhere to get my rocks off. The complete change I had seen in Karen often left me speechless. I would often find myself just shaking my head and staring at nothing in particular. I could have taken that ride of sexual freedom and experimentation along with her instead of being left outside by her betrayal and subterfuge. It was about this time that I again had contact with Maria Taylor. This time, she was the one who initiated contact. I will always remember it. Again, it was at pickup after school. She was the last parent to come, so I was on my own with Tim, her son, waiting for her to arrive. When she did, she looked around, and I could also see that she was very nervous and looked like she had been crying recently. Teachers notice these things, as it often points to what is happening in students' lives and gives us a clue about how to help those kids learn better. "Mr. Lawson, can I see you for a minute?" she asked nervously. "Sure, no one is coming, so just stay parked there and come over to my office," I replied. I always referred to the benches around the school as my office. She parked, Tim played with his soccer ball, and we sat together on the bench near the pickup area. "I don't know how to start what I want to tell you," she began. "I don't know how much you know about the gym that you saw me in." I stared at her directly, eyeball to eyeball. "I know that Karen, my wife, loves going there, and that it has really helped her keep fit and active," I cautiously replied. "There are things you need to know about what goes on there," she continued. I could tell that she was tearing up and finding it very difficult to speak. "Does it have something to do with Mark Benson?" I asked, attempting to get her to the point as quickly as possible. "You have no idea how much it has to do with that pig," she stated vehemently. "I think I may know, but tell me what you wanted to tell me," I encouraged. Well, she continued more confidently, he is a player. His only reason for being there is to sleep with as many of the regular women there as possible. How do you know this? I inquired. Because I was one of them, she blurted out tearfully. The only reason I am telling you this is because I have come to realize who, and more importantly, what he is. Up until a week ago, we had a regular relationship. He would come to my place each Thursday at about 11:30, and we would go at it like rabbits on energy drinks. Don't get me wrong, he was a master. He knew exactly how to get all of my bells ringing. At this point, she stared out to the sky wistfully, as if reliving one of those past sessions. I also stared out, but for a different reason. I was also remembering his sessions, but not wistfully. Sorry, she continued. I really liked what he was doing to me while it lasted. It was only when he had someone else for that time slot that he dropped me like a sack of potatoes. No reason, just sorry, no more. I actually thought that we might have a future. I am divorced and have missed the regular loving of a marriage relationship and was really looking forward to living that again, but this time with him. How wrong I was. I was flabbergasted. How the hell did this woman feel it was okay to share all of this with me? She must be really pissed off. Marriage relationships aren't always what we think, I replied a little too quickly. She looked into my face and saw the hurt and agony there. You already know, don't you? She asked, slowly shaking her head in disbelief. You already know that he has been having it off with Karen, your wife. Yes, I knew, Maria. Thank you for sharing this, failing miserably at keeping the venom out of my voice. But I already have a swing in motion about the whole situation. I really believe in karma, and I think that it might manifest itself soon. That creep has to pay, Maria almost yelled. He has no care about who or how he hurts just to satisfy some prowess, something he can brag about to all of his mates at the bar. If you want me to help you get back at him, let me know. That jerk has to pay and pay dearly, she repeated. She called her son over and left. I sat there for quite a while and thought. I was almost relieved that Maria had shared that with me. For a while there, my plan for revenge just seemed like sour grapes on my part for not being able to maintain my marriage. This needed more thought. I wondered how many more women he was involving from the gym. It was time to get some facts together. I couldn't help but admire the man's stamina, but I guess even the devil never gets tired. I learned that he worked there every day except Monday, which is when the gym was closed. I remembered the phone number listed on the wall at the gym. Using the telecom's white pages, I backtracked the number to an address not more than 3 blocks away from our own address. No wonder he could walk to our place to screw the life out of my wife, soon-to-be ex-wife. I informed Karen that I would be going for a walk each day at about 5:00 p.m. I told her that it was my diabetes specialist who insisted that I do it. Luckily, Karen didn't want to tag along, and she knew that it would not interfere with her trysts, so it all went smoothly. In the first evening walk, I made straight for Benson's address and saw that he lived in a ground-floor apartment in a block of several of these apartments. His car wasn't there, so I waited nearby to see when he arrived. He was always away from our house well before 6, so I guessed it would be routine for him to arrive about that time. Bang on, he walked into his apartment just before 6. This happened each day that I could walk, except for my staff meeting day, which was when I couldn't walk. I figured that he did this each day that the gym was open. Did he have a woman to visit each of these days? I was again amazed at his staying power. This man must be a sexual god, I thought. God is probably not an appropriate word given that it implies goodness. Maybe demon is more fitting. I intended to find out if he was visiting other women. My walks became earlier and earlier just to see when and where he was going each day. I decided to take a whole week off school for just that purpose. Luckily, being a diabetic and having been one for quite a few years, it was easy to get a sick certificate from my doctor. I visited an electronics store and bought what I needed, a long-range listening device, one of those discreet ones, not the one that looks like a satellite dish voice, and motion-activated cameras, full-color HD ones. I bought 5 of those, an extra portable hard drive for my computer. I had to store all of the digital evidence somewhere. Monday, after purchasing the desired items, I installed one of the cameras in Benson's apartment. Luckily, it wasn't that big, really more like a one-bedroom apartment with a large living and kitchen dining area. One camera was enough to cover everything except his bedroom. Getting it in there was easy. I just waited till he went to the gym and got his apartment keys from where he left them under the doormat. The idiot couldn't even be more creative than that. After checking to make sure that the camera worked, I left. Now, whenever he moved or made a noise in his apartment, the camera with microphone would activate and send all of the video and audio live to stream on my computer, where it would also be stored with date stamps. It started working as soon as Benson arrived back home on Monday night. There was very good footage of him eating a takeout meal in front of his TV before he went to bed at about 9:00 p.m. Tuesday. I waited until the gym closed and broke in through the back door. This was the one which is often neglected in the pre-close check in most stores. I was lucky. I placed the next camera in the private room near the back where clients come for personal health appraisals, the one where Benson often took his private clients. What sort of man had I become? Cameras in other people's places, spying. Where would this end? Wednesday. I waited until Karen went out for groceries and placed the third and fourth cameras in our bedroom and in our living area. I reviewed the footage from Tuesday and was surprised by what I saw and heard, but not really considering the context. Benson woke up and immediately went out. He came back later with breakfast. Lazy jerk can't even make breakfast for himself, I thought. Then I remembered his prowess and had to rebuke myself. This man was indeed a sexual machine. He must be doing something right physically to maintain what he seemed to be doing. He stayed home until the gym opened and was out of there at 10:30. He did make one phone call that was interesting. "Julie, hi, it's Mark. Is he gone yet?" "Okay, see you at 12:30. Your place. Make sure to wear what I said." "No, I will be careful. No one will see me enter your place." "Did you say he was gone for 3 days?" "Okay, maybe I can come on Thursday and Friday as well. Talk this afternoon, lover." With that, he hung up and left with a definite spring in his step. I wondered how he would explain that one to Karen. Thursday, I took myself down to the garage with my computer and waited for the fun to start. Almost immediately, Benson's camera streamed to my screen. He had woken up, and after going out for his breakfast again, he returned and dialed. It was Karen's phone. The camera streamed her side of the conversation as well. This spying was invigorating. "Hey, it's Mark. How's my favorite woman feeling today? Does it need doctor?" "Mark, to attend to any itches?" "Mark, don't talk like that on the phone. You never know who could be listening. Luckily, my lame husband has gone to work. I really need some attention." "Oops, now who's talking dirty?" She giggled. "See you at 12:30 as usual?" "Of course," replied Mark. "I may have a surprise for you. Are you up to something different?" He waited. I could sense and see that Karen hesitated for only a couple of seconds before answering anything. "Can't wait," and both hung up. What was that about, I wondered. 10:30 saw Benson head off to the gym. The camera in his private room activated shortly after. It showed him sitting on his desk with an attractive lady sitting down in front of him. "Mrs. Wilson, may I call you Carol? You want to have a more one-tune session for your exercises? Is the program we have designed for you not meeting your needs anymore?" he questioned. "Well, yes and no," answered Carol coyly. "My body is becoming much more fit. I can feel it improving every day. Unfortunately, this extra fitness and stamina is producing too many hormones, if you get my meaning. I haven't felt so vital in years." "I know what you mean, Carol," said Benson. Even through the audio of the hidden camera, I could almost hear the lust in his voice. "Let me see what I can do," he continued. "Please, stand here." Carol stood and caught her breath with a short, loud intake as he placed his hands firmly on her. "Turn around," he commanded. She did, and her eyes were hooded in anticipation of what he might do next. He checked her out lustfully. "Good progress," he said. She expected that this would happen, but the reality of it far exceeded the anticipation she had felt. The other ladies in the gym had hinted that he was a player and would eagerly satisfy the need that they may have for extra tuition. Abruptly, he stopped and went back down to sit directly opposite her. She was breathing with noticeable, loud breaths as he informed her, We may have to schedule an after-gym personal session. Unfortunately, I cannot do them here at the gym. Do you live nearby? I could come over as long as there is no problem with anyone else at home. He said this in a questioning tone. She nodded and said that would be fine. She added that her husband, Mr. Wilson, was away on a business trip and that they would be quite alone for the time. Mr. Wilson would not be a problem, she informed him. He is often away, but it might be better if he kept these extra tuition times quiet for now. Of course, he replied. How does 12:30 this Friday sound? Fantastic, replied Carol. She couldn't hide her excitement as she left to do her normal classes. Maria, the parent from school, seemed eager to help in any way, so I asked her to get a list of women that Creep was seeing or had seen in the past. This she did with gusto, and within a week she had names and addresses. The list was of 30 women, all members or past members of the gym. Karen's name was also on the list, a fact that filled me with shame and anger. I had by now almost completely extricated myself from our house. I won't call it a home because it had lost all of that emotional value. It was now merely a house. Karen did comment once about how it seemed strangely emptier lately. I just replied that I was making a determined effort to declutter my stuff. She accepted that as it did not impact her stuff, it even gave her more room to spread out her things. The garage items were now also moved to my new house. All it would take for me to move out completely was a 20-minute gathering of the remaining stuff and a drive out in my car. I had seen a divorce lawyer and the papers were all prepared to serve at a moment's notice. The financials were set. Our holiday fund was completely drained into my own account. I kept all of the receipts for the fake purchases in a folder ready to supply if needed. My superannuation fund beneficiaries were changed to our children, and any available withdrawal amount was withdrawn. I had my own accounts, my own credit cards, my own insurance policies. I had changed Karen's car registration and insurance all over to her name only. She would be entirely responsible for that from now on. The house I had no control over, so I had to be at the mercy of the courts there. I bought a new mobile phone in my name only and made sure that it had an unlisted number. The original phone I canceled. I prepared a bundle of goodies for each husband of the women listed by Maria. Each bundle included details of when and where that creep had been involved with their partners. It also included his name and address. The final item included was an address for the sexual health clinic in our town, as most of what he did seemed to be unprotected. I also left an anonymous review on the gym's website, alluding to the fact that it was a known pickup area for people like him, and that they mainly targeted married women. I also sent a detailed letter to the owner of the gym stating that now would be a good time to have a serious talk with her head instructor. I left the divorce papers, some printed photos from the video surveillance of the creep and Karen, along with DVDs of the encounter on our kitchen table. My wedding ring was sawn in half and covered in something filthy beside this bundle. The note I left under it read, Karen, I left you this broken ring covered with the same stuff you put on our marriage. Don't contact me unless it is through the lawyer mentioned in the divorce papers. I have asked the school to ban you from entering the school grounds, so please don't try to contact me there. Police arrest happens quickly to anyone causing trouble on school grounds. I have informed our children of what I am doing just so there is no confusion about the reason, and so that no lies can be told about who instigated this breakup. I have sent copies of the DVDs to them. Please choke on your spit and die. I drove to my new house and waited for the mess to hit the fan, and it did with a passion. Somehow, the local papers got hold of the scandal at the local gym. The owner had no choice but to shut up shop and leave the town. A certain ex-gym instructor was found beaten to within an inch of his life in a back alley downtown. It was believed that he was set upon by an unknown group of assailants, all male. There was a sudden influx of divorce petitions to the local court, and many houses were put up for sale. Karen came home that fateful day, saw my party gifts, and promptly fainted. A neighbor heard the scream and saw her fall to the ground. It didn't take our old neighbor, a stout old woman of 70, to notice the bundle also. She quickly realized why Karen had fainted. She always was a switched-on lady. "What kind of woman are you?" she shouted, as she spat a huge glob of spit on Karen's face. She did, however, phone emergency before she left the house with the door open. Karen did try to contact me, but she had no luck on any of the phones we had. She even tried to come to the school and was subsequently arrested. One night in the watch house and a stern warning from a magistrate slowed down her efforts hugely. Our children let her know in no uncertain terms what they thought of someone who would cheat so blatantly on her husband. They were both married also, and thankfully had inherited more ethical views on fidelity from me, obviously not from Karen. The divorce went through, and in its normal process the remaining financials were sorted out. Karen had to sell the house, and the proceeds allowed her to buy another smaller house in the suburbs, where she lives now alone. The shame of being outed as one of the now infamous Jim 304 never left her. Her face was known, and whenever she went uptown there were many sideways glances and sly snickers. Some even spat in her direction. The resulting depression caused by this rejection and shame eventually led to her being cared for in a mental hospital. Me? I continued teaching, living in my new home, but not a day went by when I didn't feel the loneliness and emptiness of that place. My heart yearned for the love and warmth of our home with my wife and children, as it was so long ago. I had gotten my revenge, but I didn't win. There are no winners when all that is left is loneliness and sadness at the betrayal of a cheating spouse. Thank you for watching this intense story of betrayal and revenge. What would you do if you discovered your partner's secret affair? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more gripping tales. See you in the next video.